Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you've ever felt the sting of unplanned internal costs creeping up on a live AI project, trust me, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're taking a commercially precise look at an absolutely crucial dynamic in vendor negotiations. We're going to unpack exactly why two AI quotes rarely, if ever, price the exact same project.
Let's dive right in with our core principle here. Comparing side-by-side totals, it creates this illusion that providers are competing for the exact same finish line. But in the world of AI implementations, they rarely are. One number might just cover the model, some basic configuration, and maybe an API connection. But another quote, it might cover all of that plus workflow redesign, data prep, exception handling, human review, the whole shebang, including post-launch monitoring. So they might look like they're competing for the same project, but the underlying realities are just entirely different.
Section 1. Comparing finish lines, not just totals.
To see how this plays out, think about what happens when one quote simply stops earlier on a project schedule than another. Say, quote A stops right at month 1, while quote B extends all the way through to month 4. Now, a shorter quote like quote A isn't necessarily dishonest. It might legitimately just be offering a narrower scope. But here's the trap. That unpriced operational work in months 2, 3, and 4, it doesn't just magically disappear. Because it never stopped being necessary for your business, it just resurfaces later as your own internal workload or as a really expensive late-stage change request.
Section 2. The core control gap in AI operations.
So, what happens industry-wide when these critical operational layers aren't properly scoped right from the start? Well, Deloitte's 2026 State of AI in the Enterprise report surveyed over 3,200 leaders, and the findings are honestly pretty stark. Roughly 80% of organizations lack core agentic AI operating capabilities. To put that into perspective, that's basically 4 out of 5 companies operating without things like real-time monitoring and full-action audit trails. Why? Well, from an implementation perspective, it's usually because these controls were never scoped before the build began. They were just discovered by accident after the fact.
Section 3. 3 hidden scope failures.
So let's break down the 3 specific hidden scope failures that actually lead to those surprise internal costs. And hey, just to be clear, we aren't vendor bashing here at all. We're just seeking absolute clarity on what you are actually buying when you sign on that dotted line.
All right, failure number 1, pricing the model versus pricing the operation. Look, if a quote only covers the configuration and the API connection, they've really only priced the easiest part of the work. Actually making the system fit how your business operates, the workflow redesign, the data preparation, that is the much harder, highly valuable work that's still waiting ahead of you. If it's not a line item on the quote, your team is going to be the one doing it.
Moving on to failure 2, treating human review as optional. If your AI outputs affect real customers, or if they handle sensitive information or material business actions, exception handling isn't some decorative add-on. Actually, scratch that. It's a mandatory reality. Leaving it out of scope simply removes it from the price. It definitely doesn't remove it from the project, and it certainly doesn't remove the risk.
And then we have failure 3, stopping at go-live. Adoption support and post-launch monitoring rarely appear on a build quote, mostly because they happen after the vendor's invoice is already paid. But adoption design is so much more than just a basic one-off training session. Without post-launch ownership, an AI system is going to quietly degrade over time. And guess what? The cost of that degradation lands entirely on the business, not the vendor.
Section 4. What good looks like. Pricing the 6 layers. Okay, so what does a complete, honestly scoped quote actually look like? Well, a fully scoped quote cleanly separates the project into 6 distinct layers. And what's really interesting here is that this doesn't inherently make the AI more expensive. It just makes the scope visible. When you can see everything, from the initial audit and scoping all the way down to ongoing operations, priced out separately, you can make an empowered choice. You know exactly what you're buying now, what you might stage for later, and what you're actively choosing to do without.
Section 5. Making scope boundaries visible with Omnisenti.
This brings us to how a partner can actually give you this visibility without forcing a rigid, one-size-fits-all formula onto your business. Omnisenti doesn't pretend every quote should look the same. Instead, their proposals are modular and entirely bespoke. They focus on making scope boundaries visible, explicitly identifying exactly what is included, what's staged, and what is excluded. So absolutely nothing is hiding behind a single deceptive number.
And honestly, this level of transparency is a real game changer. Visible scope boundaries prevent those surprise internal workloads we talked about, and they completely eliminate those frustrating late-stage change requests for undiscussed work.
It clarifies exactly what the business still needs to plan for, giving you total command and predictability over your entire AI rollout.
Section 6. The final finish line.
So let's wrap up this explainer. If you're ready to stop comparing abstract totals and you want to see what a bespoke, fully scoped implementation actually looks like for your business, you can reply SCOPE to start the conversation with Omnisenti today. It is absolutely time to ensure you're comparing finish lines, not just bottom line numbers.
Because ultimately, and this is the most critical takeaway from today's analysis, a lower price means absolutely nothing until you know exactly where the scope ends. So the next time a vendor hands you an incredibly competitive, low-cost proposal, ask yourself, are they really faster and cheaper, or are you just about to buy yourself a massive, unpriced part-time job?